Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. I hereby call to order the regular session of the Orange Unified School District Board meeting for September 8th, 2022. Please stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The pledge has special meaning, special meaning, being that we're approaching 9/11 Patriots Day soon. So, Dr. Hanson, item 3B, report of closed session decisions.
There's nothing to report. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, item C, adoption of the agenda. May I please have a motion to adopt the agenda?
I'll move it.
Trustee
Second.
Erickson?
Second.
Trustee Moffitt, second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? A motion is adopted, 7-0. Okay, item 4A, Superintendent's report. Dr. Hanson.
Thank you, Madam President. Well, we're pleased to say that we sent out in the superintendent's newsletter last week some information on our safety forums that we had during the summer. We had 4 safety forums, and we shared some of the insights and information that we got input from our community regarding how we can continuously improve to ensure that our students are safe. So if you haven't had a chance to read that, please go to our website and review it. And shortly, there will be a task force that will begin to convene to put together some recommendations to the Board of Education, and we'll have a presentation and information item with some additional inputs for the board so that we can continually improve our facilities. And so if resources need to be put behind some of these actions, I'm sure the board will make that determination. So we're pleased to have that coming forth to our community probably in the October meeting. Our next meeting will be a study session on facilities. We're looking forward to that. But the next regular meeting will be October the 20th. In addition to that, the opening of schools has gone very well. And we're really pleased to report that our enrollment numbers are up and our schools are healthy and thriving. Our students are in school every day, and we're very pleased with that. Mr. Rivera and his team will be talking about our unaudited actuals and finalizing our budget for this year, and then giving some forecasting on how next year looks. And so he'll have some good news about enrollment, and that's on our agenda this evening. So I'd like to thank publicly the Business Services Department, who has been working all summer to close the budget and get us real numbers in terms of what we're working with for the new school year. So that's on the agenda, as well as our community schools grant will be an information item this evening, and we're looking forward to implementing that grant to support the ongoing wellness and mental health of our community. So that concludes my report for this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Hanson. We'll go on to item 4B, which is Board President's report, and that's me. And I just want to say, since our last meeting, it seems like this heat did not let up, and hope everybody is managing to stay cool. And we have fires in the mountains and thunderstorms in the forecast, and for some reason, it seems like Mother Nature is not too happy right now. But be safe out there, and don't forget to hydrate. And, you know, we visited our schools, and we saw the kids are doing pretty well. Speaking of hot, how many of you braved the heat and went to the Orange Street Fair this past weekend because it was really hot? I know I saw Trustee Ortega there and Trustee Erickson. Trustee Erickson and I went on Sunday at 11, and it was already almost 100 degrees. It felt like a sauna. And I want to thank the OUSD staff who went out there over the weekend and participated in the booth, greeting our students and community members, and it took a dedicated team to really get out there this weekend. It was my understanding that we had a lot of visitors, so that's great, and so I want to just acknowledge them. And I also want to acknowledge the parents and volunteers who actually manned the booths for their booster clubs, and so that was amazing because they're doing that to fundraise for the students and for the athletics or whatever program they're supporting, but bottom line is that they're helping our schools, so I want to tell them how grateful I am for that. And I just wanted to share that I had the opportunity to travel to Sacramento last week to attend the Council of Presidents meeting at CSBA as a representative of the Asian Pacific Islander School Boards Members Association. And there was a small group of us, and we had a chance to have great discussion with the CSBA president, Susan Heredia, and other staff members. And topics of discussion included implementation of the Late Start Bill, home-to-school transportation, transitional kindergarten, declining enrollment, funding, and other educational issues. It was great to meet other board members in other districts, so we have an opportunity to discuss the different ways that we're doing our implementation. One other thing I did is I met with Kim Lay. She's a community member in Orange, a business owner, and she's also a commissioner of the arts for the Orange County Airport. And so she shared with me that there's going to be an art contest, and there's an opportunity for students' artwork to be displayed at the John Wayne Airport. So I'm going to leave this with our Educational Services Department, and hopefully you can spread the information to our students, because I think it'd be kind of neat to see an OUSD artwork up at the Orange County Airport. So I want to thank her for sharing that opportunity with us. And with the new school year, I requested to visit some schools, and today Trustee Erickson and I went to Lamson and Palmyra and visited classroom and facilities. And with the additional COVID funds, we were able to see the big screen monitors, and teachers wore their microphones, and so students can hear them without them shouting. So that was really great to see. And we saw the bottle filling stations on every campus, and the principals express excitement about the shade structures. And today was the perfect day to see how we needed those bottle fillers and shade structures. So thank you, Principals Letterman and Pantoja, for a wonderful visit. Despite the heat, the students were comfortable in their classrooms. We got to also see the students enjoy their flexible seating. One of the teachers said that she was reluctant to do flexible seating at first because she thought it was too chaotic. And but it turned out, after she did it, she said the kids loved it. And she thought maybe they would be fighting over a particular spot, but every kid found their own space. And she said, and it made them more relaxed, and they had choices, and she said it worked out really well. So I like the fact that we're always trying new things, and so that's great. And I'm sure Trustee Erickson will have more to share. And as you can see, we have new school student board members here, and I'd like to welcome them. We had the opportunity to meet them right before this meeting, and it is my hope that our meetings will inspire them to get into the field of education or public service. We welcome you and encourage your participation, and student board members can give a report at the board meetings or back at your respective schools. And I'd like to thank you in advance for your commitment and service to our district and schools. And you will have the opportunity to meet them shortly. And that concludes my report. We'll go on to item 4C. Do we have any board members who have recognitions or like to comment? Oh, Trustee Erickson.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming out tonight. And it was very exciting to meet our student board members. I can't wait to hear what kind of input they have in all the issues that we decide here on the school board. We're obviously back full swing on our campuses. And as President Yamasaki said, we visited Palmyra and Lamson today. It's obviously still a little early in the year, everybody's settling in, but we visited pre-K, TK, every grade up to 6th grade, GATE classes, regular classes, combo classes, and our Success program, which serves our moderate to severe students on the autism spectrum. And I was struck by something actually Diego said when we met him, and he talked about the amount of diversity on the campuses. And I think anybody that isn't that familiar with public education has no appreciation for what public schools do and for the variety of services that we provide and the number of students with just completely different needs, different strengths, different requirements, people that need different kinds of support, different backgrounds, different struggles. And I think that it just amazes me every time I do a school tour how much our teachers and our aides and our principals and everybody are doing to really meet the needs of our students, because they really do. Our students are successful in Orange Unified, and it just makes me very proud and grateful. And I think that today we actually did see some of our work, I guess, at play with some additional instructional assistants that were at the schools, and that was nice to see some extra support for our teachers and specifically for our students. Everybody just works really hard to really meet the needs of each individual student, because as we all know, there is no standardized student. Everybody is unique, and everybody has their own things that they need. So I'm excited to see the additional supports in the classroom, and I can't wait for our parents to be cleared so that they can now volunteer in the classroom as well. I'm looking forward to attending Patriot Day tomorrow at Knoll Canyon Elementary and attending the Fletcher Mandarin, I have to get this right, Fletcher Mandarin Language and GATE Academy's Mid-Autumn and Honor Teachers Day celebration tomorrow. So I'm looking forward to that. So everybody stay cool and hydrated.
Anybody else?
I have
Okay.
some things.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Paige.
So going along with the theme of coming back to school and, everyone coming back into full swing, last week, some of our schools had back to school night, and I attended Fletcher Mandarin Language and GATE Academy's back to school night, and it was so wonderful to peek in all the teachers' classrooms and the presentations that they had prepared to share with all the learning that's going to happen all year long. And the other highlight as well was to see all of our families super excited to be back on campus and already starting to host some welcome back events for our kids. In addition to that, this last month, I finally attended my last Masters of Governance course. So what this is the California School Board Association Masters of Governance program that equips school board members and also superintendents with the knowledge and skills to build and support an effective governance structure. So some of the topics that were covered were foundations of effective governance, setting direction, policy and judicial review, student learning and achievement, school finance, human resources, community relations and advocacy. And so there's 5 different courses that take, each course is 2 days long. And so I'm glad that I was able to learn all these different areas of governing in our school district, had the opportunity to work with other school board members across the state and see the diverse that we have within our school board members, because there's so many districts. Some districts across the state maybe only have 1 school, where we have over 40 schools in our school district. So it was really neat to be able to share some insight in that. And tomorrow night, there's going to be the Mid-Autumn Festival and Honor Teachers Day at Saravilla Middle School. Mid-Autumn Festival is also known as the Moon Festival or the Mooncake Festival in Chinese culture. Students will present in both languages, in Mandarin and in English, the history about the holiday and some of the work that they've been doing in their classes. And in addition to that, they're also going to be celebrating Teachers Day, which actually comes in honoring Confucius' birthday as a way to pay respect to China's first teacher. The Orange Mandarin Community Booster Club will honor educators in our district, and we're grateful to have their leadership to spearhead this cultural event for our students and community. So Trustee Erickson and I are looking forward to celebrating with our students from Fletcher, Sarah Villa, and Villa Park, and their families as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Page, and congratulations on completing your governance class. I did that, and so I know it's a lot of work, and so I encourage all of our board members to do that as well. I think Trustee Erickson's almost done. Almost. Yep. So, and I will also be attending the program tomorrow. Trustee Moffitt, did you have something?
I do.
Okay, you were looking at me, so I thought.
Yes, thank you.
Sure.
And I join you, Madam President, in congratulating Mrs. Page and also Mrs. Erickson and yourself for having completed or almost completed the Masters in Governance. It's not obvious or intuitive or obvious what it takes to make a good school board member, to be a school board member. And so I appreciate that you've put in the time and made the commitment to be the best you can be, to make our school district the best it can be. So congratulations to all of you. I also wanted to congratulate the Orange Unified PTA Council, who had their first meeting of the year this year. And just like the kids, when you go back to school in September, there's some energy, there's some enthusiasm, there's a sense of anticipation, there's just some excitement about, first of all, being together again rather than having a meeting via Zoom or some other digital way. But I was just very excited to see that they had a great turnout and started out the year really, really well. One of the things they talked about was the PTA's National Program of Reflections, which is, again, an art contest. So when you talked about just now the art contest for John Wayne Airport, our students could do artwork and submit them both for reflections and also to the art contest at John Wayne Airport. So this is a good time to get started on an art project, whether it's a painting or, I don't know if you're familiar with Reflections, but Reflections has 7 different categories of the arts, so it's a wonderful, wonderful program. That's a program of the PTA done through their schools. I also, right after the PTA Council meeting, attended the Legislative Coalition meeting, and they also had a good turnout, and some of the coalition members are here, and PTA members are here. We had a great discussion that I really appreciated, because one of the topics that's on my mind as well as on many people's minds is school and student safety, as well as mental health and wellness. And as Dr. Hansen referred to in her report, we had 4 community forums this past month on that topic, so that we can take another look at our school safety plans. School safety plans are required and have been required by law for decades, a long, long time. But the landscape of school safety continually changes, kind of depending on what the level of safety is in our society in general. So there are things to continually be looking at and to be seeing how can we do better the things that we've always known were important. And that process continues, and a task force has been populated by the staff to look at our safety plans, to examine and sort of elicit more input from our community and our parents on what can we do to make our schools even safer than what they are now. And we as a board will be hearing more about that as that process rolls out. So I just want everyone to know that the events of this summer, I'm sure, sit heavily on everyone's shoulders who has a child in school, and it certainly sits heavily on our shoulders, and we want to be doing everything we can to make our schools and each one of our students and staff members as safe as they can be when they come into our schools. And then I also thought, because of the events of today, that it might be a nice, even though Queen Elizabeth II had not much to do with Orange Unified School District. This certainly is a sad and historic day because she is an historic figure, and she is a person who was admired and respected the world over, and particularly in her country. She was a beloved symbol of stability and courage and service to country. And so in recognition of all that she has meant to her country and also the world, Madam President, may I ask for a moment of silence for Queen Elizabeth II?
All right.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. That conclude your report, Kathy?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Trustee Ortega?
Yes, excuse me. Yeah, I was really hot at the fair this weekend. I was there all weekend, like 12 hours a day. It was crazy. Our church booth was actually right next door to the Orange Unified School Board, or school district's booth as well. They saw me with a wet towel, cold all the time because it was so hot. And then volunteering for my kids and their areas, and it was just hot. Anyway, what I want to allude to too is on the school safety task force is I would be hoping, seeing that this is my background, that it would be in a more expedient manner than what we're looking at here. What, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 months for meetings, and then come back with recommendations, seeing that we're going to go for a full school year versus moving forward in a much expedient manner. And I would look at it in the sense that I would have law enforcement in it, and have them come and do our vulnerability and threat assessments, and then have them review our emergency plans. Those are the ones who are better suited to do all this. This is my whole background. This is what we do. And-
Trustee Ortega, sorry to interrupt, but may I suggest that we pull that item and then you can discuss it during that time, because
Is
we
it on
don't
the
have
agenda?
well, I thought you were looking at it as an agenda.
No, I'm looking at
Okay.
the flyer.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
All right. Or,
Yeah, I'm looking at the flyer that you put out.
okay. So since it's a
Okay.
topic to discuss, maybe we can discuss it
Okay.
at the next meeting. I'd be
Sure.
happy to
All right.
put that on the agenda.
Okay.
Okay, great. Because all right, thank you. All right, do you have anything else to add?
No.
Any other board members? Okay, great, thank you. We'll go on to item D, board recognition. You've got the EDGE Employee of the Month recognition. Dr. Hanson?
Yes, thank you, Madam President. Tonight, we celebrate the You've Got the Edge Employee of the Month program for September. Certificated and classified employees are eligible, and an award is given each month during the school year to an employee who exemplifies one or more of the district's core values of integrity, equity, respect, and excellence. This month, Allison Rudd, fourth grade teacher from California Elementary School, has been selected for this honor. And she's here in the audience.
All right, Allison, will you join me? Is this on? Hello? Turn this on. Sorry. Is it on?
Yes, it's on.
Okay, maybe I need to be closer, sorry. Here, let me give you this.
Thank you.
Welcome, Allison. Allison goes above and beyond to serve the staff and students at the Orange Unified School District in ways that reflect the core values of OUSD's EDGE. California principal Misty Bernasso had this to say about Allison. Allison Rudd is beginning her 22nd year at California Inspire Academy. Ms. Rudd is one of those teachers you come across once in a great while. Allison gets to know every student in her class as a whole person. She is able to see exactly what each child brings to the community, and her whole teaching approach involves finding and using children's unique strengths to help them. At the same time, Allison has strong academic expectations and shows her students every day that she believes that they can succeed. We are so proud to be represented by Allison Rudd as Employee of the Month. Go Bears! Thank you. And this is for you. We want to thank Allison for representing OUSD's EDGE values. She will be awarded with a customized EDGE tumbler with her name engraved, a gift card from Schools First, and a framed Employee of the Month certificate. So congratulations, Allison. The Board of Education thanks you for your dedication and devotion to the Orange Unified School District.
Thank you very much.
Madam President, the family or friends might want to, they're taking pictures from the side there. Maybe they want to come up and take some pictures.
And the principal's here as well. Ms. Bernasso. You might have to get a picture up there too, so.
He's over here. Thank you, and thank you for bringing your family here too. It's always good to see the support. All right, item 4E, introduction of student board members. Hanson?
Miss Lisa Green will introduce this item, and we're very pleased that the student board members were able to come in at the end of closed session and also get to have a little meet and greet with the board ahead of time. So now we get them formally introduced. Thank you, Ms. Green.
Good evening. Good evening, President Yamasaki and members of the board. Every year, the Orange Unified School District Board of Education invites each high school to select an outstanding student to represent them at school board meetings. Our students are a source of valuable insight into the effect of school board decisions on Orange Unified School District's high school population. So I've encouraged them to always speak their opinion and to share at meetings. Throughout the 2022-23 school year, the offices of the superintendent will work with the student representatives to facilitate communication between the Board of Education and the students of our district. Student board members will attend board meetings and sit at your right, spotlight one aspect of their school that is unique, and return communication back to their schools regarding decisions made at board meetings. This evening, I am delighted to welcome our 2022 and 2023 student board members. And I'm going to introduce the principal of Canyon High School, Mr. Craig Abercrombie, who will present the 2022-2023 student board member for Canyon to the Board of Education and to the public.
Thank you. Good evening, President Yamasaki, members of the board, Superintendent Hanson, Executive Cabinet. Thank you for hosting us here this evening. It's my pleasure to introduce Canyon High School Student Board Member for the 2022-2023 school year, Madison Salome. Would you please join me at the podium? Madison is a senior at Canyon High School. She was interested in serving as her school's student board member because she wants to contribute to the decision-making of our school district and connect Canyon High School with the Orange Unified Administration. Madison is involved in the Ambassador Program. She's a member of the National Honor Society and volunteers at the Canyon High School Library. Madison plays club soccer and is also a babysitter. In the future, Madison would like to attend college, pursue a major in political science, and study law in grad school. Congratulations, Madison. Thanks for representing Canyon High School. And Madison is sacrificing our first home football game tonight to be here. I know that was a tough decision for her. Now I would like to introduce the principal of El Medina High School, Ms. Sandra Preciado, who will introduce El Medina's school board member.
Good evening. Ruby Hewitt will be the student board member representative for El Medina High School for the 2022-23 school year. Can you please come up, Ruby? Ruby is a senior at El Medina High School. Ruby was motivated to become a student board member because of her interest in politics, activism, and advocacy. Ruby wants to explore opportunities for improvement, advocate for and represent students of El Medina, as well as elementary and middle school students in our district. Ruby is Elections Commissioner on El Medina's ASB, Fundraising and Events Assistant Director on the Vanguard Dance Company, as well as President of the Halo Club. In her spare time, loves to dance at the music room, and after graduating high school, Ruby is interested in studying psychology, right? Yes. Anything else? Okay. And Ruby is going to be representing El Medina. It's my pleasure to introduce Cheryl Anderson, principal of Orange High School, who will be introducing her representative.
Good evening. I'm proud to introduce the student board member for Orange High School, Diego Paz, for this school year. Come on up. Diego is a senior at Orange High School. Diego is motivated to be a student board member because he feels he has a lot to offer and can use his previous experiences in leadership to help the student body. He strives to become an invaluable liaison between the trustees and the students that they are serving. Diego is currently an ambassador on ASB in his third year of leadership and also served on the Orange High School School Site Council for 2 years. Diego is also on the cross-country and track team. He's involved in the ambassador program and volunteers for the Red Cross and environmental clubs on campus. Diego enjoys writing stories and drawing cartoons, and he also plans on majoring in computer science and pursuing a career in software development. If everybody could give Diego a round of applause, we're super excited to have him represent Orange High. Go and have a seat. It is my pleasure to introduce Villa Park's assistant principal, Rich Simons, who will introduce Villa Park's student board leader.
Sorry, I'm using the actual script up here. There we go. All right. Villa Park High School, we're represented by Hope Chimera for the 2021-2023 school year. Come on up, Hope. Hope is a senior at Villa Park High School. Hope was motivated to participate as a school board member because he wants to capture the voice of a student's perspective on how the school runs and find opportunities to make it better. He wants to take every student's voice and opinion into account. Hope is excited to work together with the other student board members. Hope is a part of Villa Park's Key Club and played 3 years of baseball for the school. In the future, he plans to attend a Cal State or UC and major in computer information systems. And I do want to note that I got to spend 5 days with this young man at Orange County Leadership Conference up at UC Santa Barbara, and it was a true pleasure. So this is Hope Chimera. At this time, I'd like to please welcome the principal of Richland High School, Lisa Ogan, who will introduce the 2022-2023 student board member for Richland.
Good evening. It gives me great pleasure to introduce Jada Duvia, who will represent Richland High School for the 2022-2023 school year. Come on up. Jada is a senior at Richland High School. She was interested in serving her school, student board member because she wants to be able to represent Richland. She wants to contribute towards being a part of the larger community and become Richland's voice. Jada seeks to contribute to ASB and the school by student tutoring, her artwork, writing, and giving a unique perspective as a woman of color. Jada excels in writing, and she looks forward to attending college after graduation and pursuing a nursing or teaching career. Well done. Once again, thank you to all of our student board members, and the Board of Education looks forward to working with you all during the 2022-2023 school year. Thank you.
I believe Kevin will be taking a photo. And we got a nice photo with the board prior to coming in, so we'll take with their principals now.
Thank you very much again for representing your schools. It's a very impressive group of students. We look forward to your input and ideas. And if you want to interject, feel free to raise your hand, and we are happy to call on you. Don't be shy, but I won't put you on the spot either.
Madam President?
Yes.
May I also suggest that in addition to raising their hand, because their hand might not be noticed, maybe they could also say when the time is appropriate, Madam President, or something like that, to verbally, catch your attention. So that would be an appropriate way, and then wait until you're recognized and then say what you want to say. And we all encourage you to do that because we're so grateful that you're here, and we want to hear from you. So thanks.
Thank you, Trustee Muffet. All right, moving on, we're going to do approval of minutes. May I have a motion to approve the minutes from August 18th, 2022, meeting as presented?
I'll move.
Trustee Page, is there a second?
Second.
Second, Trustee Ledesma. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion is approved, 7-0. Thank you. Okay, moving on to public comments. Trustee Page, will you please read the guidelines for public comment?
Members of the audience may address the Board of Education on agenda items during consideration of that item and non-agenda items that are within the board's subject matter and jurisdiction. Speaking time is limited to 3 minutes per speaker with a maximum of 20 minutes per topic, and persons wishing to speak should submit a blue card prior to the meeting. Non-agenda items may neither be acted upon nor discussed by the board, but will be responded to by either telephone, mail, or at a subsequent meeting. And we have one public comment. Jody Halprin.
Thank you.
Thank you, board members, President Yamasaki. Good evening. My name is Jody Halprin. I am mother of 4 children. They have graduated from McPherson and Villa Park High School. My youngest is currently a sophomore. My prior career was in allied health sector as an occupational therapist. It was my goal to help the injured, disabled clients become independent. September is Service Dog Awareness, and I'm a volunteer puppy raiser for Canine Companions. This is the puppy that I'm currently raising. Her name is January, and she is 8 months old. I got January when she was 10 weeks old, and will teach her about 30 cues, like those you would teach a pet dog. The other thing I will do is to provide January with socialization in the public and private settings. When she is 18 months old, I will return her to Canine Companions in Oceanside, where she will learn advanced cues for 6 months. That will support the work of a service dog, such as pulling a wheelchair or picking up dropped objects. Canine Companions is a national organization that provides service dogs to adults, children, and veterans with disabilities. and facility dogs to professionals in healthcare, criminal justice, and educational settings. Since our founding in 1975, Canine Companions has placed over 7,000 dogs. Our dogs and all follow-up services are provided at no cost to our clients. In closing, I'm here to highlight in the educational school setting, a facility dog is placed with the teacher and will go to work in the classroom every day. Students learn speech skills by reading to the dog, giving commands, playing interactive games, tactile stimulation through petting, brushing, or cuddling with dogs. The dog may provide comfort, focus, in high-stress environments for students in special education. This book, written by Laura Nermoff, best-selling author of If You Give a Mouse a Cookie, has written this book, Raising a Hero, that will outline the path that I'm taking with January. Thank you for allowing January to visit with you tonight. If you have any questions or are interested in volunteering or would like more information about Canine Companions, please see me after the meeting or go to canine.org. Thank you.
Thank you. So cute. All right. I think we could just sit here and watch her for a little bit. It'll de-stress all of us. Well, thank you, Mrs. Halpern. All right. Okay, now I'm distracted. We're going on to item 7. Item 7A, 2021-22, unaudited actuals financial report, and 2022-23 revised budget. Mr. Rivera.
Yes, Ms. Yamasaki, before Mr. Rivera starts, I'd like to recognize Max Groppensberger, who is our fearless tech leader over here that makes sure everything functions. Tonight is his birthday, so happy birthday to you, Max, and thank you for being here, because he is allowed to take the day off or the night off, and we can have someone fill in for him, but he's here to support us. So thank you so much for being here, and happy birthday, and thank you for your wonderful service to all these board meetings for all these years, and you're just incredible, because never has anything failed up here.
Yeah.
So we really not that I can remember. So you were able to fix it if it did. It was just momentarily, I'm sure.
Wow. Well, thank you, Max, for your dedication. I mean, celebrating your birthday with all of us here. We're lucky.
Now we have Mr. Rivera, who's going to report on this item. Thank you.
Well, this is a hard act to follow. You have a puppy and then Max. So I'll try to keep this upbeat. So tonight, Madam President, our distinguished board members, our colleagues in cabinet, and also the Orange community that's here tonight, we're here to talk about the unaudited actuals and the revisions to the adopted budget. So every September, the first board meeting in September, we're required to bring you the updates of our actuals. The last time we brought you a budget report was in June with the adoption of the district budget. So we've broken down this report in 4 different sections for you. First, in terms of the general fund, you can see here our totals for revenues and expenditures. On the second column, you see unrestricted. The next column over is the restricted category. An example of a restricted category would be special ed and Title I expenditures. And then you see the total category on the last column. In terms of revenues versus expenditures, you can see that we had additional reserves that we added this year of $16.3 million, $12.9 million for the restricted. Much of that has to do with our COVID funding that we're receiving, or special earmark reserves. So the total increase in our reserve was $29 million for this fiscal year alone. So as we look at our beginning balances, add the increases that I just referred to, you can see what our ending balances are. So on the unrestricted side, it's a little bit over $95 million. and the restricted side of 23 million for a total of 118 million. And you can see listed below the designations of that 118 million. So for example, the 3% reserve requirement, which is almost $10 million, that's a state minimum, and all the other allocations that we've set aside based off the board directive. So for 22-23, we need to update, provide you an update, because the last time we met, we talked about the 45-day revision. Now you see some totals being revised for those state adopted budget. So in terms of revenues, we have 374 million. Under expenditures, we're planning to spend 354 million. So there's going to be a surplus of about $20 million collectively. This is a working budget, so this is not the final set of numbers. It's our starting point. So again, you can see what that means in terms of reserves. Based off the numbers I just provided you, our unrestricted reserves will be just shy of 118 million, and the restricted reserves will be about 21 million, for a total of $139 million total. So as the state adopts revisions to its budget in the Budget Act, we are still waiting for direction from the state on the being able to allow us to budget for them. So there's two examples here that we're not able to budget because the state has not established the parameters, the account codes to allow us to update the budget. So in total, you see $40 million here that has not been budgeted yet as we wait for a state directive. So we ask, so we're going through a process now to identify any revenue enhancements, which primarily is our track and retain program, ways that we can generate additional dollars to serve our students. Looking at our program commitments as to what do we need to do to serve our students. And then our budget stabilization plan, which is a comprehensive document that we look at 5-year cycle as to what corrections can we make, what plans can we alter to best put ourselves in a financial position that we can keep our program sustained and moving forward in the future. Our next budget update is going to be the December 15th board meeting with the report of the first interim report. The report after that is going to be in March 15th, which is going to be the second interim report. And then at the year end with the expected actuals and the adoption of the budget for 23-24. That sounds odd to say, but yes, it's time is moving forward. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have. Before you ask any questions, I would like to acknowledge Mrs. Balsara, who has been shorthanded. We have not been able to fill all our vacancies. We are able to fill one of our vacancies next week, and this position's been vacant since March. So we've been shorthanded. I hardly get to see Magda now because she's in the other office, and every now and then she comes to visit me. Also, Portia Gonzalez, one of our budget control supervisors, and also Marie Nguyen. So between the three of them, they've been doing work of 5. So I appreciate their efforts and work and being able to get all those reports done on time. So I gave her the night off in doing this presentation so that way she can sit there and rest. So I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Well, I just want to make a comment and say thank you so much for all your extra work. I mean, 3 people doing the job of 5, that's incredible, so thank you. We appreciate your support. Okay, do we have any questions or comments?
I have a quick question. Yeah, and 3 people doing the job of 5 during these budgeting times is absolutely, it's got to be 10 times harder than it is during normal budgeting times. For the 2 one-time revenues that we're waiting for guidance on that we haven't been able to budget for for instance, the art, music, and instructional materials, what kind of, outline or whatever do we expect? I mean, what do we think we're going to be able to spend that money on, and when do you think we'll be able to get those guidelines from the state? Is there any indication from the state as to when they're going to hand that down?
We're hoping in the next few weeks.
Okay.
If we look at the history, sometimes we receive notices in October, by October, especially if these plans require, especially if these funds require plans, which in some cases we do. So we're hoping by October to get more clarity in the specificity of how we can spend them. You realize that for one program we have 6 years, and for the other program we have 4 years to spend down the funds. So, and we can provide a Friday report for the board once we do get that specificity. But right now we don't have any indication how soon we're going to get these notices.
Thank you.
Do we have, Trustee Ledesma.
In these actuals, what was the impact of declining enrollment? Like ballpark to the revenues?
So this past year, we declined, I believe it was 250 kids. So when you look at our funding, you're looking at $3 million approximately of funding. You ask a good question, because as we look at the 22-23 year, and there's been some changes in the funding model, we find that, yes, there's some temporary solutions, but we are still funded as the impact of declining enrollment. It slows it down a little bit, but it still has an effect long-term as we look at our 5-year projections, that we're not going to be able to keep the revenue, keep expenditures at the same pace of the revenue streams that we see now. So we do see a slowdown. But since I've been here, we've lost about 3,000 students.
Right.
So the 3,000 students looking at our funding model, it gets to be a big number.
Sure does.
You know, you're looking at about $36 to $40 million ongoing. But we've been able to slow that number down. And actually, we have a report from our demographer, Davis Demographics. For the current year, they were projecting a decline of 650 based off the historical data and doing the 4-year revenue, 4-year enrollment projections. As of the 10th school day, remember we used 361 as our projection. We are about 22 students ahead of our projections. So we have more kids than we were projecting. And the good thing is that happened by the 10th day. We continue to grow. Historically, we continue to grow for the first approximately 45 days of school. Last year, we grew by 1,000 students. So if we see, we'll be receiving, actually this Friday will be the month 1 end. So we'll be providing the board updates, and we'll have those updates for the first interim. But right now, we have been generating higher enrollment than our demographer has been projecting. And that delta right there, you're looking at over 300 students, which again tends to be $3.6 million moving forward. And it's as a result of the attract and retain program that we put in place. And we meet regularly on that attract and retain to see how we can look at generating additional revenues through increase in attendance, and also looking at attendance strategies or enrollment strategies and marketing strategies of how we can put our schools in the best position. Since we've had the attract and retain program, when I first got here, we had 360 kids that were leaving us to go to another district at the elementary level. That number is now down to 60. So we've been able to cut that number down by 80%. And that delta, that 300 kids, means a lot of money on an ongoing basis. So I'm very proud of the results and the work that is being done by the team to help us sustain these reserves and serve our students.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
That is wonderful news. So just to be clear, our enrollment is up from our projection. but the numbers, the raw numbers, were not up.
Correct. We're still
Okay.
declining.
Right. But
Last
we're
year-
not declining at the pace that we thought.
Correct. Last year, we declined about 1%. And if you look at county-wide, that was one of the lowest levels of decline in the county. So we should know when we produce the CalPADS report, which will be in October. So by the end of October, beginning of November, we'll be able to give you a better position of where do we stand, because we should be hearing also from our surrounding districts, and sometimes it's an indication
Right.
how things are going. But we are ahead of our projections.
We would love to see that report too. That would be indicative of how we're doing,
Yes.
right? I have one quick question, if you don't mind. Is there any news on the movement of the LCFF concentration grant? You remember the threshold we had talked about?
No, as you asked the question, I think I need the therapy dog just to calm. No, unfortunately, there has not been any movement.
Okay.
In fact, we see that there's increases in concentration grant allocations to the districts that have high percentages.
Right.
But it ignores our district, which is very diverse. And we have schools with 90, 95%, but we do not receive any funding.
Right.
So I'm hoping that as we are looking at the new budget, that there's some consideration by the state.
Yeah.
And since there's funding that's being allocated now, that some funding be allocated on some restoration to assist our schools.
Okay. I think that's something that we need to talk to our legislators about.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I've practiced that speech several times.
One of the things that I want to highlight here is that, and you'll get the full reports because we've been monitoring for the last 10 days, and I was really pleased to be at the Orange Community Council PTA meeting to share with the parents that, yes, the state of California is experiencing a decline in enrollment, so is Orange County, but with Orange Unified, we're really doing well. And when you look at the statistics compared to other districts in our county, we are declining at a 1%, 2%, as opposed to higher numbers in other districts, which are at 5 to 6%. And I attribute that to the amazing work of our teachers and our staff that kept our schools open during the pandemic, because some of our neighboring districts were closed for up to a year. And many students actually came to Orange Unified during that time. So I think it's reflective of the incredible work of the entire team and the school board for your great support during the 2 years that we put all those plans in place, and the instructional team came up with hybrid models and live streaming, and how we accommodated all the unique needs of our community during the pandemic to ensure that they received a quality educational program. So we're really, really, really pleased with this, that we can say that we're attracting and retaining students in Orange Unified, and it's shown in the numbers at our schools.
Our demographer is quite impressed when they see our numbers and how we're outperforming the projections. So last year, 250, 300 kids over the projection. This year, 300. So, I like those totals.
Thank you. Thank you.
I have a follow-up question to that. So with the decrease in our student population be attributed to the low birth rate as opposed to losing students in our district?
So we have been experiencing declining birth rates. So we have 1,000 fewer births now than we did in 1992. So yes, the transition, the cohorts moving forward, we have fewer kids to serve. That's true with all districts. The number of kids that were leaving the district 4 years ago was pretty high. We've been able to reduce that number significantly by about 400 kids over a period of time. And it's because of the attract and retain. It's because of the communication. It's because of the marketing pieces that we've been working on, communicating with our schools and getting the messages out.
Do we have any figures on how many kids leave our district to go to charter schools or private schools?
So the data that we have is when they have to ask for a permit to leave the district. So that means to another agency, another district. There's no permit that's required to go to a private school. I don't believe there's a permit that's required to go to a charter school either,
Okay.
but I can verify that. So some of that information we don't, is not readily available because they're not required to fill out a form.
Okay.
But I can look into that.
Okay, thank you.
At the facilities planning meeting on September the 29th, we will be presenting some more in-depth demographic studies for you so you can see how that's impacting our school sites across the board when we talk about facilities. Okay?
Great. Do we have any other questions or discussion? All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Rivera, and thank you again to our team. We appreciate you. It is recommended that the Board of Education hold, I'm sorry, I'm at the wrong spot. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the board agenda item as presented. Do I have a motion?
I'll move.
I'll second.
Okay, that's Trustee Erickson moved it, and Trustee Page, second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes 7-0. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to item 7B, public hearing on the sufficiency of textbooks, instructional materials, and science lab equipment, 9-12, and adoption of board resolution number 12-22-23.
Ms. Green, yeah. Thank you.
So, good evening, Board President Yamasaki, board members, Superintendent Hansen, and Executive Cabinet. I am Lisa Green. I'm the Executive Director of Curriculum and Instruction. The Williams settlement sets a specific timeline for districts in certifying the sufficiency of textbooks, instructional materials, and science lab equipment for grades 9 through 12. The settlement requires the hearing to be held prior to the end of the 8th week, after the first day pupils attend schools. Education Code Section 60119 specifies that the governing boards of school district establish steps and procedures and take appropriate action to ensure the availability of textbooks and instructional materials on a yearly basis. The Office of Curriculum and Instruction has determined that all grades are sufficient with the number of textbooks and instructional materials in the areas of mathematics, science, English language arts, English language development, and the visual and performing arts. In addition, the availability of laboratory science equipment was found sufficient for all science courses offered in grades 9 through 12. The district has posted, as required by law, a notice of public hearing 10 days in advance of this evening's hearing, and the resolution satisfies the requirements of the timeline for implementation of the Williams settlement legislation. It is recommended that the Board of Education hold a public hearing, adopt resolution number 12-22-23, and certify to the California Department of Education that the district has complied with the requirements of Education Code Section 60119.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Green. I will now close the regular meeting and open the public hearing at 8:11 p.m. Are there any speakers regarding the sufficiency of textbooks, instructional materials, and science lab equipment?
No, we don't.
Okay, thank you. I will now close the public hearing and reopen the regular Board of Education meeting at 8:11 p.m. Is there a motion to adopt the resolution 12-22-23 to certify to the California Department of Education that the district has complied with the requirements of the Education Code? Do I have a motion?
I'll move.
Thank you, Trustee Ramsey. Do I have a second?
Second.
Trustee Erickson, second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Green. Okay, on to item 8A, California Community Schools Partnership Program Implementation Grant. And
Thank you, President Yamasaki. Mr. Joe Irvin, Executive Director of Innovation and Excellence, will present this item.
Good evening, Board President Yamasaki, Board Trustees, Superintendent Hansen, and Executive Cabinet. I'm Joe Irvin, Executive Director of Innovation and Excellence, and today I'll be talking about the Orange Unified Community Schools Grant, which is one of the key initiatives of the Transforming California Schools program through the California Department of Education. So before I get into the grant details, I wanted to talk a little bit about what is a community school. So a community school is any school serving pre-K through 12th grade as in a whole child approach with an integrated approach on academics, health, social services, youth and community development, and community engagement. The community schools design their own programs to support the whole child and partner with community-based organizations and local government agencies to align community resources to realize a shared vision of success. They improve student outcomes by addressing students' academic, cognitive, physical, mental, and social emotional needs. Community schools also meet the needs of children and youth by building a positive school climate and trusting relationships, along with a rich learning opportunity that prepare all students for success in college, career, and life. The Community Schools Initiative has 4 pillars, and those 4 pillars kind of go along with the definition of a community school. So they have the integrated student supports, and again, those integrated student supports support students by meeting their academic, physical, social, emotional, and mental health needs. Family and community engagement, which involves actively tapping into the expertise and knowledge of the family and community members that serve as true partners to the community school. Collaborative leadership and practices for educators and administrators that establish a culture of professional learning, collective trust, and shared responsibility for outcomes in a manner that includes student, families, and community members. And finally, extended learning time and opportunities that include academic support, enrichment, and real-world opportunities. So a little bit about the grant. The grant application was developed in the spring of 2022. In July, we received the grant notification that we had received it. So Orange Unified is receiving $15.2 million to support community schooling at 11 identified Title I schools. So the schools that were identified, it's based on their unduplicated pupil counts, which is the percentage of students that are socioeconomically disadvantaged, English learners, and foster youth. And the California Department of Education, the criteria was any school that had the 80% threshold or more was able to receive the grant. So for our district, the 11 elementary schools are California iInspire Academy, Cambridge, Esplanade, Fairhaven, Handy, Jordan Academy, Lamson, Prospect, Sycamore, Taft, and West Orange. So the funding will be paid out over 5 years according to the following payment schedule. So year 1 is this year, so we'll be implementing this grant starting as soon as the funding comes in, which should be immediately. $2.88 million this year, and then years 2 through 4 are $3.04 million, and the final year is $2.32 million. When writing the grant, we had to give an initial proposal on how we were going to utilize that funding. So the budget proposal to the state, we identified the following supports to target those elementary schools to move towards that community school implementation. We looked at adding a full-time elementary mental health counselor at each of the 11 identified schools. And this will give OUSD some of the lowest student to counselor ratios in the county. We are planning to implement the Sown to Grow software. This will help help counselors identify those students in need before there are behaviors. So this is more of a proactive counseling support for those students. This will provide for a full-time community school lead. This will be a classified position that will work with our communities to develop that community school. This position will strengthen parent and community connections and overall collaboration. And they will help us determine how to build that community school through that parent support by utilizing the extra funding which will be set aside for parent education, community partnerships, and development of resource centers. And again, that would be based on the individual, the school needs. So again, we'll pull parent groups together to determine how best to utilize that funding. Okay, are there any questions about our community schools grant?
Thank you, Mr. Irvin. You have a question?
I do. I have some questions. Thank you for this information. I've been doing a lot of looking at community schools, and I think it's such a great model, and I think it's something that's really well suited for Orange Unified. I think I have a few questions. When we're doing the community schools, do we have to have them at all 11 schools? I guess my concern is that we water down the programs when it's spread out amongst so many schools. And I worry that we kind of lose the impact of a community school if it's spread too thin. Right. Is this something that was required, that we needed to have it established at all Title I schools at once?
We don't have to have it at all Title I schools at once. However, when we applied, the $15.2 million is actually divided amongst those schools. So it's not, we're receiving the money on a per school basis. And two of the schools, Esplanade and Jordan, are receiving slightly less funding. So we have to actually spend the money according to the school, and it's based on their student enrollment. So it's not, we don't get a $15.2 million pot and we're not able to spend it. We have to spend it according to the way that the grant is. Yeah, we can't divide it up evenly.
You're not dividing $15 million by a certain number of schools.
Yeah.
However, I do understand that there might be a second round of community schools grants, so more schools will become eligible. This was just the first round of funding, am I correct?
Yeah, we got in under the first round of funding, so we had, I think in the spring, we had about a week and a half to pull the grant application together. It was a very fast process. We were able to develop that and we received the grant, but there is another grant coming available. I think it's going to be in late September, early October. So we could apply for those schools that we were not under this grant, which would be, with this 80% threshold, would be Yorba and Portola middle schools.
Okay. I guess my question is, a lot of times we have schools that are sort of like a experimental program, and so we sort of start with that, and then we build the program based on that. And was there any thought to really picking a couple of schools and really focusing on them, as opposed? That's what I kind of thought we were going to do, is that we would pick some schools and focus really heavily on them. And I understand there's an issue of equity, so we need to make sure we are treating everybody equitably, but when I look at this and it's all wonderful and there's nothing wrong with it. It's just that I see, we add a full-time elementary health counselor at each site. So is that in addition to the ones that we've already added? So they will then have basically 2 people on site?
Well, the idea would be to then spread out those the mental health counselors that are already in it, because right now most of our elementary mental health counselors are split between two schools. So this would allow every elementary school in the district to have their own elementary mental health counselor on site full time, because we're able to then spread the resources out to those other schools that would not have qualified for this program.
Right, and I think that's my concern, is that then it just ends up being used basically as general fund money as opposed to really being focused on a community school. Because I really do want this to work, and I want it to be something that's not just being used and then we funnel the rest of the money to other schools, because then it's really, there's nothing really extra about a community school. That's my concern. And I look a little bit like, full-time community school lead, site lead. I don't really see where the teachers and the educators were the ones that were engaged in the planning. And I worry about that too, because they're the ones obviously on the ground with their students, with their parents and all of that. And it seems like there should just be a little bit more input there. And so are there plans for that?
Absolutely. So there's still extra funding each year within that model So each year, as you can see from that payment schedule, the 2.88 million, not all of that is encumbered in those two positions at each of the school sites. So each school site will still have available around 78 to about 100,000 that first year. And then years 2 through 4, that funding will actually, there'll be more available. And that parent group, the community schools lead, will help organize that parent group, getting input from the community, getting input from the school site to determine how best we can serve that community. So it needs to be very tailored and specific to that school. So it could be building a community school center for parent education, working with organizations to bring resources on school site to have a garden, lots of opportunities, but it will be developing that at each of those school sites.
So it's unique to each school site is what you're saying?
It's going to be unique to each school site based on the need of that school site.
Okay.
And based on the needs of the parents in the community, the students in the community, kind of determining what it is that they need most.
Okay. I mean, I would like to get some, periodic updates on it because, like I said, I don't want this to be money that ends up dissipating over because we're now not having to use certain money for certain schools and now then they end up losing funds that go to other schools. I really do want to focus on this and really create community schools that are actually community schools and not just a school with an extra counselor.
Absolutely. And there is money there is money embedded in there, and again, it's around $78,000 to $100,000 depending on the school, and that is totally for building that individual, unique program to that school site.
And we're using community partners. I know that there's a really good program.
We've been in contact with Care Solace, which is a program we are already using to connect individuals with outside counseling support, but they are developing programs to bring community resources into schools. Again, we would look at what each school site is in need of and help tailor that program.
I know we use Care Solace, but there are other programs out there that actually may provide a little bit more service. Yeah. Have we looked at other programs as well? And you've come up with Care Solace as being the preferred vendor?
No, that was just an example.
An example, okay.
So as we're going to be talking about building these programs out, we're going to be looking at what vendors are out there, what resources we can provide, presenting those to the parents, finding out, and then gaining that input about what do they see as a need for their community.
I think the focus is to allow each school to develop what their resources they need. So for instance, one school might need a food bank on campus, and so there might be a resource center where we're, working with the local food bank to help us have, dry food, canned goods. Every site might have a different resource in place. So that's why there's that bullet that says some funds will be set aside for the community to determine what resources they need on campus so that the school becomes a community center. I mean, it may be working with the Assistance League to get, backpacks, and we have a number of community partners that we could engage depending on what the needs are at each school. It's going to be tailored to what that particular parent, community, educational inputs that we receive.
I know there's a good program for foster youth. I think it's Project Angel. I can't remember what it's called.
Yeah, and Christine Nelson works with that group.
Okay.
And some of these agencies don't require any funding to bring in. So they'll be just community partners that we'll be bringing in, and then some will have those opportunities where we'd have to pay to bring consultants in to do the parent education opportunities that parents want. Maybe it's working on, talking about community college or college A through G requirements, and whatever. It's kind of determined based on what that community is really in need of, and that's we'll be surveying, and again that lead person will be our point of contact with the community to kind of send out that information and collect that for us.
So when we look at the full-time elementary counselor and integration of Zone to Grow and all of that, that is not taking up all the money.
No,
in other
it's
words,
not taking
there's
up
funds left over that are going to be okay.
Yes, it's again around $100,000 a year per school.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Trustee Page?
Thank you, Mr. Irvin. So Trustee Erickson stole some of my questions, but I'll continue on. So when we talk about community schools and the way you were describing it, and even some of the pictures that you showed in your presentation, it really reminds me of Bronfenbrenner and how it really centers the child and the community serves around it, right? So there's all these systems that are in play to be able to support, to ensure that that child is successful, however that's defined within that community. And so, now that we have 11 sites that are identified as community schools, and thank you for sharing the details about how every school is going to be unique, I want to hear more about how parents are going to be involved. You described the parent engagement task force and how that's going to be promoted, in addition to potentially partnering with that school's PTA. Like, how is that going to be kind of highlighted in order for a parent voice to truly be included?
Yeah, so that community lead position will be, the community schools lead position at each of the school sites will be our individual on that school sites that's working with that parent community trying to elicit this feedback. So it could be through a variety of means. Like there will be in-person sessions to come on to campus and talk about what the needs are, surveying, phone calling, anything we can to reach out to that community to establish what it is that is most needed in the local school community. So, for example, I was at Fairhaven today. We were looking at they have a parent resource center already on campus. So developing that into that space that parents can meet in, and then they can have those conversations about what it is that we can do to further develop that space into a community resource center, if that's what they really feel they need. And then offering what trainings, what parent education opportunities, what student opportunities do we want to offer? And a lot of this will also flow into the ELOP because a lot of these are going to be extended school day opportunities. So it's going to be eliciting as much of that information as we can from the local community.
So in addition to getting the families and communities' feedback, is there any other data that you're using for each school site to help inform those decisions?
Yeah, and and some of the data we used to apply for the grant was looking at our the amount of times our students are seeing our counselors on an individual and group basis. So, and we've seen that has been increasing over time. So that was one of the reasons that we wanted that extra support for the mental health counselor, because we've seen the need increase for student support at our elementary sites. So we'll continue with that data, and actually Sonta Grohl will provide some of that data as counselors are working with their students. And then beyond that, I think to measure how successful we are at growing these community schools, it's going to be participation rate. Are we seeing parents participating in the community school? Are we seeing an increase in the amount of time they're spending in the classrooms? Are we seeing an increase in the amount of time that they're spending doing parent education? So I think all of that participation rate is going to be a key indicator of how successful this grant is.
I'm glad that there's going to be measures along the way to test that. And then another thought that came to mind while you were presenting was, what are the possibilities of potentially creating a collaborative of resources? So I know in the community engagement and also being able to bring on teachers for like collaborative leadership practices and different things like that. What would that look like? Is that a possibility with this grant to be able to create a collaborative at every school site with key resources that are needed, and to have like every other month meetings to be able to talk about the services that they can provide?
Absolutely, and that's really that focus of that lead on that school site to help develop that collaborative, to help develop those relationships, to get into what the needs are, and then what resources we can make available to the community.
Okay, thank you.
I have some questions.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Moffitt?
Yes, Mr. Irvin, I have some questions as well. Some of these have been touched on, so forgive me if I'm redundant. The first question is, how are you going to get the parents to turn out initially to hear about this, so that they can consider and hopefully be motivated to come forward and participate in whatever it is that they are invited to participate. I mean, parent time is very dear.
Yes.
Especially when you have a busy family, a young family, and perhaps you're working hard, maybe even 2 jobs and that kind of thing. How are you gonna get that parent involvement that you want, even initially,
Yeah.
to hear about what this is all about?
I think it starts with all the groups that are already meeting on campus. So our PTAs, our school site councils, our ELAC meetings, to start that initial conversation, to start getting the word out about what the community school is all about and how we're going to start developing this. I think as we go into opportunities beyond the school day, for parent education, one thing that this can pay for is childcare. So parents can bring their students to campus. We can provide childcare while they're learning about whatever the topic is for that parent education night. So there'll be opportunities, that could be one of those ways that when that group is looking at how to use that funding, they can utilize it for such an opportunity.
Thank you. And as we are talking, and as I'm looking at the list of schools that are being given this opportunity, and having been on the PTA council for quite a while, some of these schools are schools that have struggling parent groups, struggling PTAs. Could one of the things that this community school project do is like bolster up the parent group? Because parent involvement is like the chief goal of PTA for sure.
Absolutely.
And other independent parent groups as well. And also, if you get a healthy group, a healthy organization going, it continues year after year. Whether there's a program going on or not, it kind of, builds that ethos of participation at school in the first place. So is that one of the things that could be?
Yeah, again, and that could be the first thing as we start meeting with that community school and that lead, if there's a small PTA or not a very active PTA, that could be one of the first missions of the community schools, to build that PTA, to try to engage that parent community in having an active PTA. And again, maybe it's meeting at different times throughout the day. It doesn't have to be during the school day, because we know, parent time is valuable, and it's hard to get everyone at the same time. So maybe it's having multiple meetings, different times of the day, to catch as many people as you can with the message.
Exactly.
So,
and if I may, I just want to let you know that the PTA council can be your partner on this.
That would be a great example of a community resource. So yeah.
That would be a welcome activity and a welcome partnership for the PTA council, because they're always looking to strengthen their units anyway.
Yeah.
So this would be fantastic. How are parents going to be involved in identifying, for example, students that may be struggling, that may be in need,
Well, I think that would be more of parents individually maybe bringing concerns about their personal students, but I think the community school would be looking at the needs, the greater need of the entire community, saying, like, maybe we're seeing that students are struggling in math. What can we do to support that in an after-school setting? And, there's already some of that going on with ELOP or LCFF funding, but what can we do as a community school to support this? So it might look like something different, bringing on a different group to do some after-school math tutoring, or it could be working with a local community college to bring some students on to do some after-school tutoring. So there's a lot of opportunities there. It's truly using your community resources to build that community school.
And looking at this list of schools as well, they're not all near the Friendly Center, but the Friendly Center is like a community center that reaches out and does tutoring and does food bank and does all, lots of different, providing computer lessons for parents, providing English language instruction for parents, a lot of parent information helps people locate resources that they might need for their families or for housing or for a long list of, is Friendly Center going to be involved? Are you going to be?
Friendly Center would be a great example of another community resource. Chapman University, I know they have their reading clinic that is at several of our sites, so I think they're at Fletcher. So that would be another example of a community resource that we could be targeting to help support that school. So Friendly Center, YMCA, all these groups would be ones we would want to target to help build that program.
And then it would be incumbent upon each school and their organization to make sure that the word is spread throughout their school community about what's going on and how they access it and what's it all about. And if they want to give input, how do they do that? And if they want to hear more about a program or something, where they go, that's going to be, the communication element's going to be in there somewhere.
Absolutely. The communication will be key in this program, making sure that there is a communication line and multiple means of communication going out. Absolutely. And again, I was at Fairhaven today. We were talking about some of the needs at that school specifically. And, we need to make sure that part of our whole idea behind Attract and Retain is make sure that parents are bought in completely to our schools, because once they are, they're going to be loyal to us for generations. So making sure that we're providing as much as we can to all of these students and all of these parents to give them the best results as possible.
Right, and that's what everybody's after. I just want to say one other thing, and that is that having parents involved at school and, feeling comfortable at school and feeling comfortable being part of the school community and being visible on school campuses and all, that's great stuff. But the greater stuff happens between the parent and child at home. And so hopefully, I don't even know how you put a measurement on that, but that's really where the important work gets done. Mm-hmm. And so I would just encourage you to, to look into that if there's a way to do that, or to, to measure the success of your program somehow by, trying to understand, does this help parents be a better parent at home as well as be a visible parent at school?
Absolutely.
Oh, go ahead. Just to follow up a little bit. So when we're looking at the model where it says a full-time community school site lead at each of the identified sites, and you said that's a classified?
Yes.
Okay. Because I was wondering, what if we had a model where there were multiple leads? And not that teachers need any more on their plate, because they probably don't want it, but if there was a teacher lead, a community lead, and a parent lead that were kind of all officially on board, not just a parent volunteer, but an actual position that a parent holds as part of that organizational model. I don't know if that would help to bring parents in. And obviously a lot of the students that we're helping don't necessarily have parents at home if we're talking about foster children and things like that. Yeah. So I don't know. I definitely want to make sure it's kind of more of a bottom up than a top down.
The community school lead. So all of these schools already have a community school aide or a community school liaison that's already kind of doing some of this work. This would be the lead on campus to work with the teachers and work with the parents and work with the community on how we can advance this program. So absolutely, I envision what that committee to look like would be very similar to a school site council. You'd have members of every stakeholder group working together to work through that vision of the community school for that site. So that would be something, that would be the first thing that we're going to do with those community leads is how can we build this to make it as engaging as possible for the community to start gaining that input.
Right. Yeah. Go. Do you have a question?
Yeah, I had a couple things. I'll be quick here. Let's see, the software to help counselors identify those students in the most need. Is there Is there a way that you can kind of share with us, maybe something in the Friday Pack or something, as to how this is going to be achieved? Like, is it through surveys out of the software?
Yeah.
Reports? I mean, how is that going to be used? How is the software going to be used to identify most need?
So on a weekly basis, students will do a check-in, and you can see there the kind of how are you feeling today, just to help counselors identify, because sometimes a student might not go to an adult or even a peer and say, I'm having a rough time. But if they are doing it into this Sown to Grow system, it might identify where the student's having needs.
Okay, so that's one of the same. The
Yeah.
students will take a weekly, so they'll take it through the software?
Yeah.
Okay. Is there a way for us to get some examples of that?
Yeah.
Of what, maybe a couple examples of the assessments?
Absolutely.
That the students will be taking?
I can
And
put that
any
in
other,
there, yeah.
any other surveys as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
We can probably also, Mr. Ledesma, get you an account login so you can look into it and, on your own leisure also if you like.
Okay, thank you. That's it.
Okay, Mr. Trustee Ortega?
Thank you. As you stated, this is for community, and you're going around and around, and the bottom line is this is for the community. It's for the parents. It's for the staff of the school. It's for their determination to make. And so I'm sure they know what's best for themselves and the opportunities that are going to be presented to them and how it can be shared. Because I already know we already have community liaisons at the schools. So it's not anything unique or different. It's just adding more. So I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to hearing the outcomes, because you're just starting it. So, you're going to be successful. I know it. And so, allowing the parents' involvement, the parents' choice to make is going to be paramount. The involvement from the parents is critical because their kids go to school. And that's what we do every single day. So it's, again, nothing new. We're just adding another layer of support for them. And there's a lot of organization groups out there. You can go, and it's been mentioned across the board, which ones to go to as well. So, you can look at faith-based, you can look at community organizations, you can look at a variety of them. Like you said, the YMCAs, the different parts of towns, all this stuff. And they'll be more than welcoming and open arms to help. So I'll support you, support the schools, support the parents and parent choice. And like you said, give them the opportunity first and share with them what this is and the community liaisons who's already working with the parents to share with them. So I just wanted to share that with you. So
thank you.
All right.
Okay, I have just a comment because while our trustees were speaking, I was thinking, this is a 5-year grant, and what I would like to see is something that has long-term, like longevity. So we're just sowing the seeds of something that will be longer than just the 5 years. So whatever programs we're investing in, I'd like to see outcomes that not just in the next 5 years, but much longer, so that this investment will take us even further. So as we're developing it, that's what I would like to focus on.
Absolutely. I totally agree. I think this needs to be something that goes beyond the 5-year grants. And that's really the function of the community schools grant from CDE is they want to see us, they're kind of planting the seed for something that will be larger in the future, and we will continue to grow it.
It's the fish, you give a fish or teach them how to fish or adage, or I'm terrible at these things, but thank you. I think Trustee Page, did you have one more comment?
Did, but I'm sure I'll probably end up setting up a meeting with you later. I was looking at all the elementary sites that they have been identified, and we have a large Spanish-speaking population at all those sites. I was just wondering, or if the community liaison could potentially bring on an interpreter so that parents from multiple languages are able to participate as well. That was
absolutely
the quick comment.
And again, that goes back to the needs of that community. So one community might not have the same needs as another in terms of interpretation. So we would look at what the needs are for that individualized community.
Okay. One more comment. I mean, I think this is great. I am so happy that the state is investing in our schools again. And, but I also like to see us, well, as we're developing these programs, think about those other schools who are not receiving the grants and like how we can implement some of these strategies over there, because all of our kids have needs, not just some kids. So I'd like to see how we can apply some of what we learn here to other schools as well.
Absolutely. And we'll continue to look at the community schools grants. Again, this first initiative, we applied for all of our elementary schools. They only granted the ones for that were 80%.
That was going to be one of my questions too.
Yes, yeah. So there might be more opportunities for the ones that would not meet that threshold in the future.
Okay.
We'll just keep checking. Again, this was the first implementation grant. So the second one's coming out very soon. It looks like it has the same criteria. And then we'll just see what comes in the future. So there might be opportunities in the future for our other schools that aren't on this list.
How much did the state invest in community schools grant? Do you know offhand?
I think it was like 30. I want to say it was 30 billion, but I don't remember.
Okay.
Millions. I'd have to look. I don't know. I don't remember off the top of my head.
I can look it up too.
It was a very large amount of money because I know our district alone is receiving 15.2 million. I was on with Hayward today. They received 20 million. So across the state, you can imagine how much. So I could definitely find that information for you.
Okay. Are there districts who actually didn't apply?
Oh, there was a lot of districts that did not apply.
Okay.
We were one of the few that did. The first round, yeah.
Only 4 or 5 in Orange County? Well,
Yeah.
thank you for doing that.
And it was either there was an implementation grant or a planning grant, and so we were able to apply for this one and received it. So this first cycle, there was very few that actually applied because it was a very fast turnaround on this state.
Yeah. Well, we thank you for your hard work for doing that, because I didn't know how few districts applied for it in Orange County. So thank you.
Kudos.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay,
I know that
thank
was
you.
we had a lot of questions.
No, it's good. Good to have questions, and again, this
And
is
it
where
looks like it was $3 billion.
they're $3 billion. Okay,
Wow. 3 billion.
I knew it was a three. Thank you.
You got that.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Irvin. All right. We'll move on to item 8B, proposed revisions to board policies and bylaws, first reading. Dr. Hanson?
Yes, thank you, President Yamasaki. As annually, we look at our changes in state laws and recommended policies from CSBA. We do update our policies, and you have various ones that have been provided to you in the Friday packet. So this is the opportunity for the first reading. October 20th, we'll bring them back for action. If you have any questions, we can set up opportunities to meet with myself or the appropriate staff member that has responsibility for that policy.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Do we have any questions before we move on?
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I just have a comment, and that is thank you to all the staff who provided background information for the changes and the new policies. I appreciate that.
Trustee Ortega?
I do. The one that stuck out because it said a board member brought this one forward, the civility one. What's this one about?
My understanding is the board member that brought it forward was interested in and learned at CSBA that there was the opportunity to have a civility policy, and it just underscores that, we respect free speech, but that we're going to, treat each other respectfully, and that our community, has been through a lot over the last few years, and it's been a challenging time, and that this would be something that would help re-engage our community in civil discourse and continue to work on the work that we do for our children.
Well, who brought it forward?
If they'd like to explain their reasons, I'd leave it up to them to do that, to the board member.
Well, as a board, we should know who that is. Because as board members to bring an actual policy. So.
It was brought to me by the board president, but I think there may have been a few of them that actually discussed it, but it was brought to me by President Yamasaki.
Okay.
I brought it up because at CSBA, they had mentioned the civility policy, just so that we can run an effective and meeting so that we don't have to be tied up in, handling rude or and it's in no way to limit free speech. It's just so that we can have a productive meeting. And so I did not give input on the policy. I just asked that we have one. And then I trust that, they did the research and they brought one to us. And we can review it and we can make comments on it as we go.
Because to me, this, you get into sticky grounds with First Amendment speech and, the people's rights to come forward to speak. And
Well, we're not limiting people to come.
No,
but,
I'm just
but we're
saying-
limiting people to say, words that are not, they're just not, there's, obviously you've been to some of our meetings and some people were rude and some people were using profanity, and those are reasons why. And it really is a distraction to our meetings.
Okay, and you've been to a lot of meetings too where I've been accused and attacked verbally and
that would
everything.
fall under
So,
the civility.
so it's not.
I mean, it's not meant to be one-sided. It's
Well,
for all.
I'm bringing this up right now for discussion because it is a discussion of the board.
Mm-hmm.
And I just going down a route that, I don't know, I'll look more into it since we just received it. But yeah, it was just interesting that I saw this, that's all.
If I can add, just from a First Amendment perspective, the law allows regulation of time, manner, and place. And so this would be really a regulation of manner. It's not discriminating against anybody for speaking what it is that they want to speak. It's the manner in which they do it. And I think that we are an educational institution. We have student board members. I think that it's really important that we model that and that people that come to us model that as well. And that shouldn't stifle speech. That should actually increase the level of speech because it should increase the level of cooperation and civil discourse that we have, because I think we all want that. I'm sure you do too.
I do, that's why I mentioned I've been attacked many times up here.
Right.
So all of a sudden, I didn't bring anything forward because I've been attacked, because it's their right to say what they want against me. I don't take it personal, I can care less.
Oh, we're not saying that they can't say anything about any of the board members. It's just in a matter of the way they do it.
Yeah, no, I'm not suggesting
When
anybody
you have
do that.
when you have speakers come up past the dais, I mean, that's threatening. I don't think
Look,
any
I'm
of us would.
not
Okay.
condoning anything. All I'm merely saying is that I've been in the same realm multiple times,
Mm-hmm.
and you've seen it from other folks. I've been accused of everything under the sun.
Now, if we have a
and-
board policy that will cover all of us, then That's
So
what the
all
intent
I'm
is.
mentioning is that I didn't bring it up at the time, all the times that I was getting attacked. Therefore, it was like we already had policy on disruptive meetings and
well,
everything.
actually, to be honest, right now we brought it up because it's been calm. So we would have this in place for the future.
Okay, like I said,
Madam President, I may.
No, go ahead.
Okay. I understand, this policy civility, and I've been in all the meetings as well. But I've been a board member a long time, and I've been in a lot of confrontational board meetings, from A to Z. And one thing I could comment on is how the meetings run. I mean, you have control of that gavel, and you can just stop that meeting at any moment in time, especially at a time when a speaker's not speaking appropriately. I mean, you could stop that meeting just dead in its tracks and just call for a recess, and I've done that before as a president, and it's kind of, it created civility after that. So that's my only comment is in terms of there's another avenue to take, and that would be to immediately just call a recess of the meeting, ask the folks to please be more considerate, and we'll be back in 5 minutes or whatever the case may be. But that's one way to I mean, I see that we have a policy now, but I think it, in my experience, it's how the meetings run and how you control that meeting.
Right, and I think it would be great to have a policy to reflect that.
If I can just say, I mean, everybody needs to actually read the policy because we do have it in our packet. And if you look at it, it really just reflects what the current state of the law is. It's really just a reminder that we are all one community. We all stand for the same thing. We all want to move this district forward. And it really is almost just like a reminder that we should be engaged in more civil discourse. There's nothing about the policy that changes really anything other than just saying we as a district stand for this. And I think that that's an important thing to say that we stand for. And I'm sorry that you've been attacked, and it isn't about, I don't think, Ms. Yamasaki, it isn't about me, it isn't about you, it's about us as a whole and us as a district as a whole, and really promoting, since we are and want to be a district of excellence, that's something that we should be promoting is civil discourse. And so I don't think it's meant to, like I said, read the policy, because if you read it, you'll see that it doesn't say anything different. It just says that we set as a priority civility.
Madam President, I would just like to highlight again, and this recent issue put out by CSBA, the monthly newspaper magazine that they send out. It's called California Schools, and this month, it just came, has kind of a yellowish greenish cover, and the articles, that's it. That is it. The second article is by CSBA attorney Keith Bray, and it's on this very topic. And I would suggest that all of us should read that, because I thought it was very well done. And the point that he made was that civility has to do with when something happens in a board meeting that prevents you from doing the business of the district. And so it doesn't mean like someone says something that expresses a different opinion or brings a criticism to a board member or a staff member or something like that, or confronts something or says something that makes you feel uncomfortable, something that is even insulting. It's when the speech causes such a disturbance that it prevents you from doing the business of the district. I think that's what it says in this particular magazine. So we should not, elected officials, not just us, but elected officials should not expect protection from pressure or from criticism or from uncomfortable situations or difficult decisions. That's not what this is about. This is about being able to continue to operate for the benefit of the reason that we're here, and that is to enact policy for our school district. It's an excellent article. And the reason I keep talking about it in different meetings that I've been at is the first article is really excellent too. It talks about student and school safety and mental health and wellness, and that was by the executive director, Vernon Billy. That was an excellent. This is just an excellent, excellent issue of that magazine, so I just highly recommend it.
I just want to reiterate, beyond the policy, okay, I think it's incumbent upon us to control the meeting as well.
Sure,
I mean,
absolutely.
that's another option.
Yeah.
I agree.
Goes right down
Fine, we
with
have
it.
a policy, but when folks get emotional, you can't waive a policy. I mean, that's not going to make them stop.
Oh, you're right.
You've got to take control of the meeting. So that's another option.
But I just think it's important to show as a board that we all agree that we need to be civil in our meetings.
Okay.
All right. Well, we can continue this conversation as we develop the policies. Maybe. All right. Anything further before I move on? Okay, item
Just a
9.
reminder, just to let me know if there's any additional edits, because at the October 20 meeting, I'll bring them back for this second reading and action
Okay.
at that time.
So
if you
maybe
could
I
just,
can give you a copy of this, or you can get a copy of it to put in a Friday packet or something. All right, great, thank you. Item 9, consent items. Consent items are acted upon by one motion. However, any such item can be considered separately at a board member's request and will be acted upon following approval of the consent item. Would anyone like to pull an item or move to approve?
Madam President,
Yes,
I'd
Trustee
like
Page.
to pull 15B.
15B. Sorry. 15B, resolution number 14-22-23, authorization of payment to trustee absent from regular board meeting. Okay, we'll pull that. And are there any other items that need to be pulled? Is there a motion to move all the other items? Trustee Erickson? Second? Is there a second? Second?
Second.
Trustee Page. Any discussion? All those in favor to move consent items except for 15B? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. Consent item passes without 15B, 7-0. All right, we'll move on to items pulled, 15B. And that is resolution number 14-22-23, authorization of payment to trustee absent from regular board meeting. So, does anyone want to discuss, or we can move it before we discuss?
Well, typically, whoever pulls it
Speaks to it.
speaks to it.
Thank you. Yeah, so the reason why I pulled it was because based on the comments from the last meeting and the minutes, I don't think this falls under like the reason to be paid the stipend.
Okay. Do we have any other comments, or?
I just have a question. It talks about a hardship. What hardship was it?
Well, this one is specifically talking about trustee Ortega was absent due to community service trip. And so we are determining whether he should get the monthly stipend due to his missed meeting.
Oh, a community service trip.
So I don't think, you weren't here either.
I wasn't at the meeting.
Yes.
Because I was
Yes.
at my mother's funeral.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
Well, there is a hardship.
yes.
Yes.
I think that falls within the,
She is 15A.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she's 15A, and trustee Ortega is 15B.
I'll speak to it briefly. I thought about this. Just so the public knows, or whoever's watching or whatever, we're allowed a stipend as school board members. People ask all the time if we're paid a salary, and we are not. We are paid a stipend, and it's authorized by statute by the state of California, and the amount is set based on the number of students that our district has. One of the things I noticed when I was looking at it is I think we probably need staff to look at the amount that we are receiving and determine whether or not we still fall under the $750 stipend, because our ADA has fallen below $25,000, but I don't know exactly how it's calculated. So in looking at the statute, it struck me that we might need to reduce our stipend, our monthly stipend, to $400. But I don't know. I don't know how it's calculated, so I think we should probably get a report on that because it says it's ADA from $25,000 to $100,000, and I think we're at 24 or 26, depending on how you calculate it. So struck me that was something completely different because I was looking at the statute to see what the exceptions are. So just so people know, the only thing that we have to do to receive that stipend, the only thing is show up at our meetings. We could go to 30 events in a month every single day. You don't get a stipend for doing that. You only get a stipend if you show up at the meeting. Anything else we do, the masters in governance that you do, the school site visits we do, the award ceremonies, community events, that's all on our own time. We do not get compensated for that. The only thing we do is show up at meetings. And the taxpayers have to pay for that. So there's a couple of exceptions in the law, and it says a member is paid that stipend, the taxpayers pay that. If somebody's absent from a board meeting because they're out on board business, or if they're ill, or if they have jury duty, or if we decide that there's a hardship as a board. And so I know, Mr. Ortega, I mean, you were sick in April, sick in June, you got paid for that, the taxpayers paid for that because that specifically fell into an exception. But the July meeting, I think, is a little trickier because, you know, that was really, I think, a charitable venture, as noble as it is and as nice as it is. And you said it was lovely. It was, you know, through your church, and it sounds like it was very personally satisfying. But I do think that is that's personal business. That is not something that the taxpayers necessarily contemplate paying for. It's not a hardship in the same way that, you know, a graduation of your eldest child out of state that you have no control over, and we don't expect that our board service will make us miss that. But I do think that when you're talking about something that is voluntary and personal spiritual journey, anything like that, that is something that, you know, when you're doing charity, you don't expect to get paid, and that is the sacrifice that you make. And again, not to diminish in any way what you did, because what you did sounds like it was a wonderful thing. I just don't think it falls under the exceptions of what the law allows us to find as a hardship. That's my personal view, but, you know, like I said, that's not to diminish in any way what you did. It's just that I just don't think it's a hardship. I think it's a choice.
Well, this is nothing new.
Excuse me, Mr. Ortega. I mean, I know you have what you're going to say, and that's fine. But what I'm going to say is, I just think this is political theater. This is political punishment towards Mr. Ortega. I think that's all it is. I mean, it's election time, so we've got to, you know, an uptick in the drama, and I think this is total political punishment.
Well,
of course it is. I'm not, you know, unknown to this. This happens. It's the time of the season, and if it's going to be political, make it political, you know, to benefit yourselves. That's perfectly fine.
I don't see.
If you're gonna vote against it, instead of your theatrics, just put it up for a vote it, and then see where it goes, and so we can go home.
That's why Miss Anna Page brought it forward, because she's not running.
Exactly.
So that's how it works. So there are three
I mainly
individuals.
wanted to bring it up because it says in ed code.
Excuse me. There are three individuals that are running. They did not bring this forward. Of course, they're speaking to it because it's time for the political theater. But Anna Page brought it forward.
I brought it up because where are we going to define the line? And if it's educationally related, you know, how do we define that? How is it going to be, you know, are we going to be attending all these other events in place of our board meeting? This is the place and time where we get to meet in public to deliberate on the business of the district, and this is the only time we have.
Ms. Page, this is the first time you've had any kind of disagreement on things, and I just see you as a political puppet right now.
Ms. Page, this isn't our first rodeo, so we've been on the board long enough to see this.
I know. I heard when you came on the board, and I was still in high school, and so I appreciate your years of expertise, and I get to.
Okay, so let's just you vote it, you move it
Well,
forward.
I'd like to make a
so-
comment. You know, Trustee Ortega, you indicated at the last meeting that you were out of the country in Uganda and you were doing mission work. The trip was not approved by OUSD or the board or the district, and you took it voluntarily. In fact, we didn't even know where you were when you were not at the meeting. And so I appreciate that it was done for a good cause. However, in my opinion, it was not a hardship because it was voluntary. Our calendar was approved at the end of last year, and it was approved by the board unanimously, and so there's ample time for planning. And furthermore, a lot of us here, we do extensive community work, and I don't think it would be good precedence to use taxpayers' money to pay for board members to do outside volunteer work, especially without prior approval.
Why am I going to ask you in public for approval when I do not want to jeopardize any security while I'm gone around the world, halfway around the world for my own family?
Well,
You can't see that or even appreciate that, then I can't explain it any further. All we're talking about here is if you are going to approve $750, this isn't $100,000. It's not $10,000.
It
It's
will
not 50.
set a precedence for
all
us
it
in
is
the future.
Oh, okay, that's my whole point. It's
Okay.
$750. You're either going to approve it or you're not. So just
But
please.
this is an opportunity for our
An
board to
opportunity
deliberate.
for political theater.
Yes.
I understand.
Not political theater.
Political theater. It's political theater.
It doesn't really matter. I mean,
Okay.
the point.
Well, you
Yeah, so
had
let's
an
vote. Let's vote.
Yeah.
Why continue the
Yes.
discussion?
But the point is Mr.
Yes,
Ortega, you
more
have
political
had
theater.
you've had
Yes.
3 absences.
Pile on.
Excuse me, Mr.
Sorry,
Ledesma.
well.
Would
this
you
is-
like,
I-
see civility, remember that whole thing?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Okay, Trustee Erickson speaking
So,
now, so
yeah,
we'll
I
let her
mean-
continue, and then we'll have Trustee Ledesma comment after.
The point is there, you have been paid. You've been absent 3 times out of the last four meetings or 5 meetings. Fine, you had legitimate reasons to be absent 2 of those times. One time does not fall within the same category. You can call that political theater. Maybe somebody thinks it's political theater that you brought it forward. Who knows? But it doesn't really matter. The question is whether or not it falls into that category. And I do think it's a slippery slope when we are just talking about personal charitable ventures. Again, no matter how wonderful they are, it is a personal charitable venture. And I thank you for your service. I just don't necessarily think that's a taxpayer-funded venture.
Okay, like I said, you're either going to vote it up or down, and it's a matter in my faith of believing in Jesus Christ. Is that a problem? If it is for people, then I'm sorry to hear that. So it's a matter of you're either going to vote it up or down, and your pontification on this, we've gone way too far on it. So again, it's the theater, it's in here we talked about the civility, and that's exactly my whole point, is this whole theater that takes place when certain items come up. Again, I'm not new to this. So please just, you guys are sitting up here trying to beat me up personally.
No, we're not.
Yes, you are.
No, we're not.
Yeah, you are.
No,
And
it's
so please just either vote it up or down instead of sitting up here and telling me yes or no, and oh my gosh, you did such a great job, but is it really worth it? Yes, I did visit schools over there. I was doing all that. So it was a contribution in many different ways to learn.
Absolutely.
So, and I did speak about education over there and how they do go to school Monday through Saturday, 7 to 5. I did speak to that. We visited schools, so it wasn't something unique. So again, please stop your theater, because this is against me now. So you either vote it up or down, and we move forward. That's it. Just keep it simple.
Well, see, I think you're trying to limit our First Amendment rights by not
No.
allowing us to speak.
Oh my gosh, it's just a simple approval of $750.
Well, we, as
Yes
board
or no?
members,
I mean, it's-
have an opportunity to
It's
have a
getting silly,
discussion.
is what it is.
Can I
I
ask
totally
a
agree with you.
question? Is it the protocol to bring it up in a board meeting on whether or not your time off is approved? Or is that?
Well, Mr. Ortega did have the opportunity to pull it, but he said he wanted to leave it on the
But doesn't the
agenda.
president create the agenda?
We do, but it was asked of him whether he wanted it on there. Because this is not typically something that falls under a hardship. In fact, I think Dr. Hansen spoke to our attorneys, and he said this is typically something, not a hardship.
But the board would determine,
right.
the board would determine
It
that.
doesn't fall under A or B of our board
So
policies.
to answer Ms. Rumsey's question, yes, the approval, when a board member is absent, the approval to be paid, there's been several, because of COVID, individuals have been sick. In order to be paid for that absence, we do have to bring a resolution. So this is a standard part of the board bylaw. And the law is very clear that there's two areas which have to do with jury duty and being ill, and then a district-sponsored or district-sanctioned event that is standard to be paid for. And then there's the third area, which is you bring the resolution and the board votes on whether it's a hardship or not, based on the circumstances presented by the board member. So that's in the board bylaw.
Mm-hmm. So it's not protocol to address this with him outside the board meeting before it goes on the agenda?
Yes, I spoke to Mr. Ortega, and he asked for this to be put on the agenda. So I discussed it with him, and he told me why, and I put the community service on there that he stated what he was doing. But I don't make that decision. The board has to vote on it. That's the board bylaw. So any board member can request to be paid for their absence, but ultimately the board does vote that. And we have board members who have been here much longer than me, so I know, am I explaining that correctly?
Yes, Dr. Hansen.
Okay.
Okay, so at this point then, I think we're done with discussion, so I'm going to call for a motion. Would anyone like to move?
I'll move it.
Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Can you explain the motion?
To approve it or not?
The motion is to approve.
Okay.
The motion is to approve the authorization of payment to trustee. In this instance, it would be Ortega, who was absent from the regular board meeting. So, Trustee Ledesma moved it, and Trustee Ortega seconded. Is that a conflict of interest, though, to approve your own? No?
Well, I
Okay.
got to vote on it anyway, so.
Okay. I don't know.
Well, we haven't, I mean, we've all
That's
voted.
fine. We'll just go
Yeah.
on. Okay, so there's a second by Trustee Ortega. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed should
No.
indicate how.
Yes, sorry, no.
By
All right.
my vote is no.
So I heard one, I didn't hear Trustee Rumsey.
Aye,
So you oppose?
I guess. I
Okay.
can't tell what yes or no is, so.
Okay.
Actually, as you said, all those.
I'm sorry, all those in
Thank you.
favor
Thank you.
of paying, aye. Any opposed? No. I'm sorry, I mean no. So,
Just, do you
So I'm a
oppose
no.
payment or?
I
not?
oppose payment.
You
okay.
oppose payment, okay.
So it's 2-5, so motion fails. All right. Thank you. All right, we'll go to item 17, public comment. Do we have any other public comments?
We don't have public comments.
Okay. 18, other business. Any other comments?
Wanted to reiterate, just so you understood, I'm asking for the board for staff to come back to the board to let us know whether or not we should be reducing the amount of our monthly stipend based on the number of ADA, because I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, and we'll consult with our attorney as well as review the legal references. And then I just wanted to make a comment on Mr. Ortega's security request. We will be doing an information item before the 9 meetings, so I just wanted to make sure that was clear. But I'll also touch base with you, Mr. Ortega, regarding your comments about that, because we will be bringing more information to the board as an information item along the way.
Are you talking about the safety, school safety
The safety,
task force?
but we do, when he talked, I was a little confused when he talked about the 9 months. It was, that we have a series of 9 meetings, but we're not going to wait till the end of that to update the board.
And
I just want to be clear.
You had made a superintendent's comment, I believe it was at the July meeting, that you said that law enforcement had done tours of all of the campuses already and done those initial.
Yeah, and I don't want to
things.
go off topic, but we could
Right.
talk about that at the information
Okay,
item.
I just wanted
Yeah.
to clarify, because I believe
Yeah.
you made that, you said that at the last meeting.
Law
or two
enforcement was
meetings.
present at those meetings,
Okay.
yes, yeah.
Just to be clear.
Okay, thank you. So we are adjourned at 9:22.